A lot of people say that War of Dots is won by clicking fast. If you ask me, that's exactly wrong. Welcome, Generals, back to War of Dots, an ultimate strategy guide. If you saw my last video on the economy, I really appreciate all the feedback. The community is so excellent, so vocal, so amazing, so kind. Thank you guys for watching the video. Thank you for all the comments. It really inspired me to really dig deeper and real deep dive into the strategy, the mechanics, and how to play the game War of Dots. I am planning to dive deep in here, John Madden style, with arrows on the maps pointing out what I think you should be doing, the flaws, and I'm going to be evaluating multiple games against actual players online. All of the footage that you're going to see today is all footage from online matches I played myself. And I'm also going to be using games that I lost at as examples as well. So this is not going to just be me playing up my win fest. This is going to be real life games where I have lost and also learned things. So hopefully that is intriguing to you. If it is, please do consider liking and subscribing to my channel, Mr. Bunal Gaming. I'm a brand new channel. I'm trying to grow, and every little bit helps. In this video, we're going to discuss the economy a little bit more deeper and more evolved than the last video. We're also, though, going to discuss new things like terrain, how it affects your units, what to look for. One of the big flashpoints in my last video was the 80-20 rule of my light units. I'm going to dive deeper into unit build-out structure. Should you go light units? Should you go heavy units? We're also going to talk about actual strategies and how to win this game when you are battling other generals online. Are you out there overextending your lines, ignoring the terrain, or mismanaging the initial dot spread? Then look no further to this overview of the strategic way to win at War of Dots online. So, if you're new here, Generals, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel, Mr. Bunal Gaming. I'm a new channel, I'm trying to grow, and I am having a great time bringing you guys this amazing content. War of Dots is such a fun game, so exciting, so fast-paced, so simplistic, and the community is amazing. You guys have been so vocal and so cool. I really, really do appreciate everything you guys have said and done for me the past couple weeks.
Oh, behave. Yeah. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
All right, now that you're all hyped to conquer the world, we have to talk now about one thing that kills more empires than swords do: being broke.
How much for beer?
$1.50.
$1.50? Good Lord, that's a lot of money for beer.
Can't build a Bunal gaming empire on a lemonade stand budget. Let's look at why your bank account is the most dangerous weapon in your arsenal. Okay, for chapter 1 of our ultimate strategy guide here, I did want to quickly touch base on the economy, even though my last video that you may have seen is dedicated to the economy. I wanted this whole video to be a one-stop shop. So we're going to talk about the foundations we led in that first video and build on them here. Today, we are going to be looking into the logistics and the invisible numbers that actually help you win the battle. The first mistake a lot of people make is keeping that standing army on the line at all times. This is just a gold leak. You're only spending money and you're not helping your economy build any greater. Units out in the open equal a high drain on your economy. Units in cities equal 0 upkeep. For me, I have to suggest, when possible, using light units as the permanent garrisons because they are cheap and they're quicker to move around, and because you really do want those heavier units on the front lines. Heavy units on a city are not really going to help you. They're needed on the front lines. Though your strategy, depending on how your map is given to you, you may think about putting a heavy unit on your capital if your capital is near the border. The randomness of the game and maps really does play a big part. I also recommend occupying cities farthest away from the lines. These are your cities that are in the least amount of danger, but also take the longest to get units to resupply from there to the front line. So I recommend occupying the 3 or 4 farthest back cities, maybe the 3 farthest back cities and your capital, which should leave you with 2 cities, hopefully near your front lines, which can start spawning units. Next, I want to talk about my spring-loaded recruitment technique. Hoarding versus spending. Sometimes I like to play where I pull my spend all the way down to 0, occupy my cities in the back, and then let the economy build up so that I can get to a certain amount of money, maybe 1,000 or 1,500 in funds. And then when I'm ready to attack, or maybe if I have to defend by that time, I can select all my units that were in reserve, form a line in front, and then as soon as they move off the cities, you are going to see all your new recruits be recruited. You can have 3, 4, 5 units recruited at once, and that can really help push a punch against your enemies. And if you've set it up like before so that your front cities are open, those will then spawn your armies. This also presents the option that if you've saved your money and your spend is at minimum at 0, before you slide up to maximum to then spawn your troops, you can then pick if you want to move your slider to the light troops only, heavy troops only, or a mix. This could be a good opportunity for you if you have 1,400, 1,500 in funds to move it all the way to heavy, and you can get 3 heavy units immediately. That can be a game changer.
You done changed the game. That's what you did.
For the economy, the vein system. If you look here, you see these lines connecting the cities. This is what drives your economy. That means that all of your cities are making money and can spawn units and are connected. Isolated city is a dead city. Remember, when you conquer new cities, to make sure that you're connecting them. Push 7 and then click on the city. It automatically connects and it helps build your economy. It gives you more money and then allows you to spawn troops closer to the front line. That is really key. It also helps boost recruitment speed in adjacent cities. And this can also be incorporated with the spring-loaded system from before, where if you want to not spawn troops in certain cities, you can deselect them. Now, I haven't really seen that needed, but hey, it could be possible. Golden rule, if possible, never leave a city empty. And then when you need to, you can release multiple units at once or only one at a time. Or you can deselect that city when moving a unit so you do not waste your money and no units are produced.
When you have thousands of them all bundled together, suddenly the yield goes up, but the risk is still small because, well,
Dots.
Chapter 2, Terrain and the Geometry of War. Now, when starting a new battle, one of the fun things about War of Dots is it's immediate, right? It is fast-paced action. So what you need to do is quickly as possible, identify your choke points, right? When you see those dark gray areas, those are mountains, those are impassable. If there is a small space between, you need to look and assess what is in front of you. Do you have heavy units? Do they have heavy units? Do you have light units? Do they have light units? Do you have light units and they have heavy units? You need to understand what it looks like real quickly and make some split-second decisions. This is what I call the Leonidas effect. We are going to need to identify our bottlenecks in 1 or 2 tile gaps between mountains and water, assess what we have as in troops and what the enemy has, and go from there. Do we attack? Do we defend? Do we fall back? Thing about choke points is you can put 10 men there and they can hold back an army of 50, or at least slow them down significantly. When only 2 or 3 units can fight at a time, it doesn't matter that they have multiple heavy units behind or in front. It's one at a time. If the armies can't reach the front, then you potentially have an advantage. Now, water similarly acts like a mountain, but not exactly, right? Because units can still enter the water and move around you potentially, whereas they cannot move through the mountains at all. However, because when a unit enters the water, it becomes fairly vulnerable and slow, this is usually a very risky move. So, oftentimes, water can act as another barrier. If an enemy unit tries to go around you in the water, I encourage you to try and attack them quickly while they're in the water and you're still on land, because that is a fairly easy battle to win, a fairly easy attack. So again, these are really the two major types of bottlenecks you can have is the mountain, the dark gray, and the ocean or the water river areas. But actually, now that I say that, one of the other great things I like to do is use the bridges to great effect. You can stick one unit on a bridge and really hold back an army too, for the exact reasons we already discussed. Because if they want to go around and have 2 or 3 units attacking, some of those units are going to be in the water, and then they're vulnerable. And you might be able to take out 2 or 3 units while they're busy trying to take out one of yours. Now, there's another thing you can do is use the fog of war, really manipulate and cause your enemy to make mistakes. The pull back and snap strategy. I've seen this happen a couple times and I've tried it myself to varying effect. Take your whole front line and move them back a few inches. Right? Take your whole front line and move them back so the other army can't see you. One, it doesn't necessarily hurt you because you haven't lost any victory points. And two, it potentially will allow the enemy to start moving forward towards you in a disorganized manner, meaning you could then potentially snap back in a counteroffensive, taking them by surprise, encircling, and finding good angles where you can get 2 or 3 units attacking a single unit for easy destruction of their enemy.
Nothing to see here, please.
A modification to that strategy is baiting people. Pull your army back and then pull out 1 or 2 units to start attacking and then pulling back. The enemy might chase you. If they get greedy, and then you can swing in and again sweep around them, catch them off guard. You don't have to just stay a static line. The fog of war can be used in a great effect to you. There's been lots of times I've sent out a scouting unit to go find a city in the back and it has been unoccupied, leading to me being able to take it and then cause havoc. However, I've also sent scouts out and then found the cities to be occupied, which causes me to lose my units. So the fog of war can really affect your play in multiple ways. All this being said, what you also got to do is make your first opening scan, assessing the map as it opens. This can be difficult because there's a lot to look at, and potentially you might want to start moving, or the enemy might start attacking you quickly too, leaving you in a situation where you feel like you must make attacks soon without having a full view of what's going on. But I do urge you to take a quick look at your stuff, find your choke points, find your natural barriers. Do you have a lot of heavy units in your forests? Move them out, swap them in for light units. They're not going to be good in heavy forests. And finally, I want to talk about how the terrain and your maps really affect your economy and how your strategy should play out. And this also goes into your assessment, right? So when you're assessing it, is your map full on mountains and forests? Heavy units might not be the best for you. They're not as effective in those terrains. If you're in a huge open plain area, then having a heavy tank focus might make perfect sense, and putting a giant amount of power in that plain area, in that grassland, and then attacking. Again, the terrain is super, super important, and the different terrains really determine what your strategy is and your economy might be.
Okay, so what do you need?
Guns. Lots of guns.
Okay, generals, now you know where to fight, but do you know who you're sending into the meat grinder? Sending in a light unit to do a heavy unit's job is like bringing a toothpick to a tank fight, okay? Sending in a heavy unit into the forest, well, you're not going to have a great time. The immortal question. Now, this comment in my last video did cause a bit of a stir, and I completely understand why. In my last video, I said the perfect ratio was an 80% light to 20% heavy mix because of how I like to encircle people, and that was my recommendation. I got a lot of pushback, and after consideration, I think they are 100% correct. Hopefully by now you've been listening to all my recommendations, and it's becoming a little bit clear that your strategy and tactics are really based on the map and the layout that you are given, since it is different each time, or at least there are different versions. If you're in a map with a huge plains, a huge grassland, then potentially building out a large, heavy unit contingent, sticking them in that plains, and then brute forcing your way through might be an excellent strategy. Vice versa, if you have a lot of forests and a lot of mountain choke points, then maybe my 80-20 rule is great. Put those heavy units in the choke points for defense and then load up your light units in the forest and try and win that way. But let's dig a little bit deeper into when, where, and why to build a heavy or light unit in War of Dots. There is a huge mobility gap. And like I was just mentioning, in the forest for a heavy unit, that mobility gap is tenfold nearly, or at least it feels that way. Light units are extremely flexible and quick. If you can make a little bit of a hole, a dent, then you can circle around and you can quickly encircle an enemy. And that is how you can get big losses quickly against your opponent. Light units are also really good for garrisoning cities, as we've discussed. Put 3 light units in your back 3 cities and a heavy unit on your capital potentially, and then the next 2 cities will start producing whatever units you want, as we've discussed. Light units are also good in case you need to move up and defend those closer to the border cities. A light unit can get there much quicker than a heavy unit. Light units are so good for their speed and flexibility. When it comes to the heavy units, they are your heavy hitters. If your map is completely forest, then strategy might exist where you neglect heavy, go really hard into the light units, and try and outmaneuver, especially if they have a lot of heavy units in the forest themselves. You might be able to draw them in and encircle them quickly. And once a heavy unit's encircled, 2 or 3 light units can make quick work of them. There's also similar strategies of like a kiting method where you poke the bear, you poke the lion with a light unit, and then you maybe pull back, causing the enemy to maybe chase after you, leaving gaps and not being in the best position to defend. This is another great strategy to catch your opponents off guard, poke the bear, and then take a couple steps back, see if they come after you. I don't know if there is a real golden ratio. We've also discussed it in the economy section. Potentially, there's great opportunities to put your light troops on every city, save up your funds until you have 14, 15, 1600 in funds, move all those light guys off into a line, and then have your slider onto maximum heavy. And now you have 4 or 5 heavy units and 4 or 5 light units in a line ready to attack. That could be a deadly assault wave against an enemy. To say it succinctly, your perfect ratio is really dependent on your terrain as well as your enemy's layout.
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich.
Die Generalität ist das Geschmeiß des deutschen Volkes. Sie ist ohne Ehre. Sie nennen sich Generale, weil Sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man Messer und Gabel hält.
You know the units. You know the map. Now, how do you actually win? This is where we separate the casuals from the kings. Generals, we're talking about the big brain plays, the feints, the gambits that will make your opponents want to uninstall the game and go play Minesweeper instead. Combat tactics and opening gambits, oh my. Okay, generals, this is where it gets a little bit tricky for me to talk about strategy because, in my opinion, it's a very personal and private thing. No, but really, strategy, there's a million of them. I mean, it really is something that you come up on your own and it is a personal choice. There are a million different ways to play this game or any other of these kind of war games. And, some people might prefer one way over another. So that's all to just preface that when you're playing these games, really think about how you want to play. Do you like to play quick? Do you like to play strong? Are you a defensive player? Are you an offensive player? There's a lot of different ways to play. These are just some things that I consider when playing, right? So I kind of tease it there. The blitz versus the turtle method. Are you the kind of person who immediately selects your entire line, draws it out, and then attacks? Or are you going to sit there and wait for the other guy to make the first move? Now, I'll be honest here, generals. I've been in a couple matches where it's been 4, 5, 6 minutes of just sitting there. And for me, a content creator, it's a little bit funny because I can just sit there and record it. And I know I'm going to speed it up and make a comment about it here. But in actual real world gameplay, that's kind of lame, right? I mean, and I get it. Like sometimes you don't want to be the attacker. You want to be the defensive position. You mean the back foot, and that could be advantageous. But then it just gets to a point of where who gets to be the most annoyed first, right? So that is all to say the turtle method is a viable method, but just be careful when you're playing matches not to be sitting there for 10 minutes and nobody's moved yet, If you're both of you have the strategy of the turtle method, then maybe somebody has to quit there. The similar thing though with the blitz. The reason why some players do that turtle method is because I think there is a somewhat misguided idea that attacking is going to be always a little bit more risky. At first, I thought that too. But I've played a lot of defensive battles where the offensive team is pushing through. So that's not to say that you should go all out and attack immediately, but sometimes it does pay off. If you look at your unit composition, their unit composition, and the terrain all factored together, it might be smart to attack. There's been a lot of times where we've spawned and had 3 heavy units faced up against 3 or 4 light units. That might be a perfect opportunity to immediately start attacking those light units and try and making a hole, trying to making a gap in their line before you've even occupied the other cities, right? Your first move is to try and make that gap while you're pushing back to the cities. There is the whole thing around the bottlenecks we discussed too. Those can be either defensive positions where you put a couple heavy units and then forget about it and try to focus elsewhere, or maybe it's where you do the opposite and you want to focus your attacks there, push through, and then when the enemy might be reinforcing from that other line, that's when you can attack there as well on a two-front battle. It can be hard sometimes to get that flank around because the lines do extend all the way to the map edge. So what I would recommend doing is trying to get to a point where you can have 2 or 3 of your light or heavy units or a mixture of them attacking one single of their units at a time. If you can bunch up and have multiple units attacking a single unit, those units are going to fall quicker, the holes are going to grow faster, and you're going to be able to start encircling people, winning battles quicker. One of the things I haven't really talked about yet in this video is around just the actual button clicking and the mechanics of moving armies. I'll tell you what, this game is so fast-paced and exciting sometimes that I am clicking the wrong way oftentimes. So one of my big suggestions and hints is be deliberate and go slow. I know it's very fast-paced. I know it is very exciting. There are multiple ways in this random game to play. Big piece of the fun of this game is learning and exploring different tactics. But just because we're ruthless doesn't mean we have to be animals. There's an art to winning and losing with style. Let's talk about the unspoken rules of the game so you don't end up on everyone's block list.
That's it. Screw this game.
Finally, I want to quickly talk a little bit about just the whole etiquette and the overall community of War of Dots. So if you've played War of Dots, you probably see that if you press up here, number 9, you can go and talk to people. You can talk to your opponent, right? There is a list of approved messages you can send, which, hey, that's great. I understand that you don't want to have people freeform. Who knows what people are going to do, right? So that all makes sense to me. That's completely fine. What I just want to mention here is, maybe make it a habit when you start a game, send them a good game or a hi, a real quick hi. And at the end of the game, if you're winning before the end of the game and you're winning and it's right at the end of the game, you're about to take that last city, maybe send your guy a good game in chat, right? Be a kind winner, be a gracious loser. Here's a montage of rage quits I've had. I've had multiple games end with the opponent not liking how their position is and then quitting. Now I get it. You are not happy, and I've raged quit things in my life, so I get it. But I seriously try in this game to play out my losses all the way there. And that's actually where a lot of fun things have popped up in my games, where I will pull back, I will have not very many units, and I will make some kind of last stand, like the Alamo, and we all know what happened at the Alamo, so it is very similar. A last stand, and you can have a lot of fun at those end games. You can still cause a lot of casualties. And when people think they're winning, they're not paying as much attention. You can encircle them, and you might even be able to come back in the end. I've had some pretty close calls, and I've almost come back all the way from loss to victory. And it is really fun and exciting. So again, if you're playing a game, say hi to people, say good game. A little light teasing's okay. And overall, about this community here on YouTube for War of Dots, thank you guys so much. You have given me a lot of great comments, a lot of things to think about that have really inspired this video and really helped me come up with a lot of these ideas to give you here. I know this game is really, really blowing up, and there's a lot of people watching it and excited about it. It's free to play. It is a really addictive game. So hopefully you learned something in this video. Hopefully you'll find it of value.
Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes!
And that, generals, is how you turn a screen full of dots into a global empire. Just kidding. But by now you should have the economy of a king, the tactical mind of a Spartan, and the etiquette of a pro. Remember, War of Dots isn't just about who has the biggest army, it's also about who has the biggest brain and knows how to use it. If this guide helped you even secure one more win, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps the channel grow and it keeps me on my path to building a dot empire. If you got a secret strategy and I didn't mention it, or you just feel like roasting my strategies, then drop a comment below. I'll be down there responding to as many as I can. I'm out of here to go start my next conquest in War of Dots, so I will see you on the battlefield.